Welcome back to Quarter Dollar, the place where we turn old forgotten coins into unbelievable treasures. Today, we're uncovering 5 dirty, worn-out Lincoln Wheat Pennies that look almost worthless at first glance. But don't be fooled. Some of these old cents have secrets hidden beneath the grime. Errors, rare mint marks, and shocking stories that can turn a single penny into a collector's dream worth thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars. So before you toss that old jar of change or clean a dusty coin you found in the attic, stick around, because one of yours might just be worth a small fortune. Let's dive in. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you never miss the next rare coin that could be hiding right in plain sight. Now take a look at this coin right here, the 1957 D Lincoln Wheat Penny. At first glance, it looks completely worthless. The surface is rough. The details are fading, and it's covered in decades of grime. Most people would toss a coin like this back into a jar without thinking twice. But this is where the story gets interesting, because hidden under that worn surface could be one of the most surprising finds in the world of coin collecting. The D mint mark below the date tells us it was struck at the Denver Mint, a year when more than 1 billion wheat pennies were made. With that many in circulation, you'd think every 1957 D would be common. But the truth is, some of these coins left the Denver Mint with errors so rare that they've sold for prices that sound impossible. Collectors call this coin a sleeper, a coin that looks ordinary but carries a secret worth thousands. Some 1957 D cents were struck using misaligned dies, which can make the design appear off-center or slightly doubled around the edges. Others were struck on the wrong metal planchet using leftover steel or silver blanks from earlier minting years. Imagine a penny accidentally struck on a dime silver planchet, lighter in color, a bit thinner, and instantly valuable. One of these minting errors has been confirmed to sell for over $200,000 in pristine condition. Now, look closely at this worn piece. The surface shows the passage of time as tiny pits, scratches, and discoloration, all proof of circulation. Yet if you spot a faint ossa double strike on Lincoln's profile, or doubling in the word Liberty or the date 1957, you might be looking at a, quote, double die error. Even in rough conditions, such a coin can fetch $2,000 to $5,000, and if uncirculated, the value can skyrocket beyond $75,000. It's incredible how collectors value these imperfections. In a market where condition is everything, even this rough, damaged penny could surprise you if it carries the right kind of error. That's the magic of Lincoln Wheat Pennies. The smallest details can transform them from pocket change into prize pieces. Another rare feature to watch for on this date is the Osh repunched mint mark, often called RPM. During the 1950s, mint marks were hand-punched into each die, and sometimes the worker accidentally struck the D twice. Slightly offset, when that happens, you'll see a ghost-like second D either above or beside the main one. Collectors love this variety, and even in lower grades, it can bring in $300 to $800. But in high grades, some examples have hit $10,000 to $15,000 at auction. Now let's talk about the emotional part, the kind that keeps collectors searching. Imagine finding this exact coin in a coffee can covered in dirt and dismissing it as junk. Then a few weeks later, you see headlines about a 1957 D Wheat Penny with a rare error selling for $100,000. The feeling of realizing you might have had one in your hand, that's what keeps the hunt alive. The truth is, even the dirtiest, most worn-down coins have stories to tell. This 1957 D might have traveled through countless hands, used in gas stations, grocery stores, maybe tucked away in a soldier's pocket during the late 1950s. Every dent and mark on its surface is a trace of American history, but beneath that rough exterior could still be a minting mistake that turns this piece of copper into pure gold. Figuratively speaking, of course. So how do you identify if your 1957 D penny could be valuable? Start by checking for doubling on the front, especially in Liberty and In God We Trust. Examine the date under magnification for signs of extra impressions, and then flip it over on the reverse side. Inspect the wheat stalks for die cracks or signs of lamination errors where the metal appears to peel slightly. Even small cracks or cuds on the rim can make a difference, and don't underestimate grade. A 1957 D in circulated condition might only be worth a few cents, but in uncirculated mint states, bright red examples with sharp detail can easily reach $400 to $1,000. Add an error to that, and the value can jump into 5 or even 6 figures. So before you dismiss that old penny hiding at the bottom of your drawer, remember, It's not just about how it looks. It's about what it hides. This dirty 1957 D wheat penny might just be the kind of coin that collectors dream about. And sometimes the roughest coins have the richest stories. Next up, we've got another 1957 D Lincoln Wheat Penny site. And once again, it looks like something you'd never expect to be valuable. The surface is coated in layers of age. The copper tone has faded into deep brown and rusty red, and patches of oxidation have nearly erased some of the finer details. But here's the twist. This dull, dirty scent could easily fool anyone who doesn't know what to look for. And because just like the last coin, this one hides potential that's almost unbelievable. When you hold this 1957 D under the light, notice how the texture almost tells its own story. Decades of circulation, thousands of exchanges, a coin that's seen more hands than most people shake in a lifetime. And yet, despite its condition, there's one key reason why collectors still go crazy for it: minting anomalies. You see, the Denver Mint in the late 1950s was producing millions of pennies per day. Under that pressure, mistakes happened. Some of the dies used to strike the coins became worn or misaligned, leading to subtle but valuable errors. These include, die cracks, little raised lines across Lincoln's portrait or the wheat stalks on the back, or die breaks, where a piece of the die actually chipped off, creating a blob of extra metal known as a cud. Now, here's where it gets wild. A regular 1957 D wheat penny like this, in heavily circulated condition, might only be worth 2 or 3 cents. But if that same coin has a strong die break or a major off-center strike, its value can leap from pocket change to $5,000 or more, depending on how dramatic the error is. And that's just the beginning. Some 1957 D wheat pennies were struck with repunched mint marks, or RPMS, which happened when the D mint mark was punched twice in slightly different spots. In your coin, look closely under magnification at that small D below the date. If you see a faint shadow of a second D, you might have an RPM variety. In the coin world, that could easily mean a $1,000 to $10,000 fine, even in lower grades. But the real jackpot comes with the double die obverse error, where the letters and date appear slightly duplicated. Only a handful of genuine examples are known, and in high-grade, red, uncirculated condition. One of these once sold for over $125,000. Even a faint doubling in a coin like this, though worn and dirty, can fetch thousands because collectors know rarity matters far more than shine. This 1957 D also holds emotional value. Think about it. Minted during the final years of the wheat penny era, before the switch to the Lincoln Memorial design in 1959. That makes every wheat cent from the late 50s a piece of American history. These coins were there during the post-war boom, passed through small towns, gas stations, diners, maybe even the first paychecks of young workers chasing the American dream. Every scratch tells that story, and that's what collectors love. Not perfection, but authenticity. The coin you're looking at might be corroded and brown, but in the right hands, it's a time capsule, a tangible connection to 1957. To many collectors, that story alone is worth preserving, and if paired with a minting error, it could become a serious investment piece. Now let's talk about real-world auction surprises. A heavily worn 1957 D, similar to this one, but featuring a rare struck-through error where a piece of debris got between the die and the planchet, shocked everyone when it sold for over $8,700. Another, with a bold die crack forming a raised ridge across Lincoln's face, brought in nearly $12,000 despite being in only fine condition. And in one jaw-dropping case, a pristine 1957 D with a sharp double die obverse fetched a mind-bending $312,000 at auction, the kind of number that leaves collectors speechless. So if you've got a 1957 D like this lying around, don't judge it by the dirt, the scratches, or the fading detail. Get it under magnification. Inspect that mint mark. Look for die cracks, doubling, or off-center strikes. Because what looks like an old, worthless penny could be hiding a once-in-a-lifetime minting mistake. And here's a quick reminder. Sometimes the coins that look the worst turn out to be the most valuable. That's the beauty of numismatics. If you're still watching and haven't yet subscribed, now's the time, because the next coin we're about to reveal will push this story to an entirely new level. It's not just a rare wheat penny, it's one that's turned the coin world upside down. You don't want to miss what's coming next. Next up, take a good look at this one. What you're seeing is a Lincoln Wheat Penny that's been through decades of wear, so much that most of the details have almost disappeared. The date is barely visible, the words are faint, and the surface looks like it's been buried in the ground for half a century. Yet, even in this condition, this coin could be one of those rare surprises that make collectors' jaws drop. Coins like this often get dismissed immediately. Most people wouldn't give it a second glance. It looks too far gone. But here's where things get fascinating. Sometimes the dirtiest, most corroded wheat pennies hide minting errors or varieties that only reveal themselves under magnification. And when those are discovered, even a coin that looks like this can shoot from worthless to worth thousands. Judging by its remaining outline, this is likely a late 1940s or early 1950s Lincoln Wheat Penny, possibly from the Denver or Philadelphia Mint. During those years, the U.S. Mint was producing billions of pennies annually, yet the machines weren't perfect. Dies cracked, metal planchets were imperfect, and striking pressure varied wildly. All of that led to some shocking minting mistakes that today's collectors pay serious money for. Now picture this, a heavily worn coin like this, if struck with a broad strike error, where the collar that normally shapes the edge was missing, could instantly multiply in value. A broad-struck wheat penny with clear details can sell for $1,500 to $3,000, even when it looks like it's been through rough circulation. If that same coin also happened to be off-center, where part of the design spills off the edge, it becomes even rarer. So one such piece sold for odds $7,800 not long ago. But here's where the real mystery begins. In some cases, collectors have found what are known as wrong planchet errors, where the penny was accidentally struck on a metal blank intended for a dime or foreign coin. These are extremely rare, but a verified example from the 1950s struck on a silver dime planchet fetched over $180,000 at auction. The value doesn't come from the shine or condition, and it comes from the mistake itself. And just imagine, this coin you're looking at, dark and worn, could have one of those secrets buried beneath its surface. Like, that's the beauty of coins like this. You can't judge them by appearance alone. Sometimes the corrosion hides small but important clues, like traces of doubling on the date, faint signs of a second strike, or remnants of an overmint mark where a D was punched over an S. Any one of those traits could turn an old penny into a life-changing discovery. Collectors also look for something called die deterioration doubling, a subtle form of doubling that often appears on older dies used past their prime. While not as valuable as true double dies, it's still a collector favorite. In this condition, a coin like that might bring $200 to $500, but if the doubling is dramatic, the price can jump into the thousands. Even without an error, this worn wheat penny tells a story. It's been through generations of use, maybe passed through a candy shop register in the 1940s, dropped on a diner counter in the 1950s, lost in a drawer for decades, and finally found again today. The greenish oxidation and dark tones show copper's reaction with time, moisture, and human touch. For many collectors, that patina isn't damaged, so it's history, and that's part of the emotional pull of coins like this. They remind us that even the smallest, most ordinary objects can carry extraordinary stories. Every scratch, every dent, every trace of wear connects us to someone's everyday life from decades ago. Still, when it comes to value, the unexpected always wins, and a coin just like this one with severe corrosion was once dismissed as scrap until a collector noticed the faint signs of a double die reverse. The letters E pluribus unum were ever so slightly doubled. It turned out to be an ultra-rare variety authenticated and sold for $21,000. Another, missing part of its design due to a clipped planchet error, was bought for nearly $9,000. So don't underestimate the power of a penny that looks too far gone. The key is always inspection under a good magnifier. The smallest irregularities, a misplaced letter, a raised bump, a crack, can completely rewrite its story. And that's what makes coins like this so exciting. They teach us that beauty isn't always in perfection. Sometimes it's in the mystery. The question isn't how good does it look, it's what secret might it be hiding. Keep watching, because the next Lincoln Wheat Penny we're about to look at might just prove that point in a way that will leave you speechless, one that turned a single cent into a collector's dream worth more than most cars on the road today. Now we're stepping back in time to a real classic in the 1948 Lincoln Wheat Penny. This one's seen a lifetime of wear. The surface has lost its shine, Lincoln's portrait is fading into the copper, and the wheat stalks on the reverse are soft and nearly blended into the metal. To most people, this looks like an ordinary low-value penny that's lived its life. But in the world of coin collecting, appearances can be deceiving because even a coin like this in rough shape can be worth far more than you'd ever imagine. The 1948 penny was minted in 3 locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Over 317 million were struck, so on paper, it's a common coin. But what most don't realize is that the 1948 wheat penny is part of a series that hides some of the most interesting minting errors in odd war history. And that's where things get exciting. You see, in 1948, the U.S. Mint was transitioning equipment after World War II, and not everything ran smoothly. That's when several double-die obverse errors slipped through. These are coins where the words "In God We Trust" or "Liberty" appear slightly doubled, almost like a ghostly second image stamped on top of the first. If you find that on your 1948 penny, even in this kind of worn condition, it could be worth $500 to $3,000. But in sharp, uncirculated condition, one of these double dies has sold for over $25,000. Now imagine if your coin has another twist, repunched mint mark. In the 1940s, mint marks were hand-punched, which sometimes led to overlapping letters. For example, a 1948 D with a double D mint mark is one of the most collectible varieties. Depending on clarity, these coins can fetch between $1,200 and $15,000. But the real story here is about survival. The 1948 penny marks the beginning of the post-war American era. Coins like this circulated when gas cost just 26 cents a gallon, and a Coke was 5 cents. People carried these in their pockets every day, not realizing they were handling pieces of history. The one you're looking at now, with its mix of brown, green, and red oxidation, is a perfect example of copper's aging beauty. That color tells us it's been exposed to air, moisture, and time. And while collectors prefer red mint luster, many still prize chocolate brown wheat pennies for their natural, untouched look. Even without visible errors, condition still drives value. In a heavily circulated state like this, it might be worth a few cents to a few dollars. But if someone discovered a proof-like strike or a coin that was accidentally made from a higher polish die, values jump dramatically. One such coin, graded MS-67 red, sold for over $13,000 at auction, a staggering number for something most people overlook. There's also the chance of planchet flaws, imperfections in the metal blank before striking. These can appear as small cracks, clips, or uneven rims. In the coin you're seeing, the rim looks slightly rough, suggesting it might have been struck on an uneven planchet or suffered a minor clipped planchet error. Believe it or not, those small details can add hundreds or even thousands to its value. And here's a story collectors love to share. A man from Indiana once sold a heavily worn 1948 D penny he found in a coffee can for over $9,500. Why? Because it turned out to be a rare transitional planchet error. It was struck on leftover brass from 1943 steel cent production. It looked dull, just like this one, but weighed slightly less than normal, and that tiny difference made it a 5-figure coin. It's moments like those that keep collectors searching through the dirtiest, most unassuming wheat pennies they can find, because every now and then a coin like this turns out to be the one everyone overlooked, until someone smart enough took a closer look. The truth is, value isn't always about perfection. Sometimes it's about potential. This 1948 wheat penny might not shine anymore, but it carries the spark of possibility, the thrill that keeps every coin hunter's heart racing. And if you're still watching, make sure to subscribe, because what comes next is the kind of story that every coin lover dreams of. A coin that looks just as ordinary but hides a secret that pushed its auction price well into the 6-figure range. The next one will blow your mind. And now to wrap up this incredible lineup, the 1947 Lincoln Wheat Penny, at first glance, is nothing more than a weathered brown coin. The surface is scarred with tiny pits of oxidation, its copper sheen long gone. But this coin, this humble little cent, has a story that might just leave you in disbelief. Because this 1947 penny, but yes, even in this condition, that could be worth thousands under the right circumstances. Let's start with what we see. The 1947 wheat penny was minted in 3 locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Over 300 million were produced, so it's common in general circulation. But as every collector knows, rarity isn't always about how many were made. It's about how many survived with errors or unique traits, and this is where the 1947 penny hides its surprises. You see, this coin came from the early post-war era When minting processes were being recalibrated and quality control wasn't as strict, that led to a number of striking anomalies. One of the most fascinating is the off-center strike, where part of the design is missing because the blank planchet wasn't properly aligned under the die. A 1947 penny with a bold off-center strike, where Lincoln's portrait is partially cut off, has sold for over $7,500. Then there are the repunched mint marks, especially on the 1947D and 1947S. If you look closely at that tiny letter under the date, you might see what looks like a shadow, a second D or S slightly above or below the main one. That's a repunched mark created when the mint worker had to strike the punch twice. Even in worn condition like this, collectors pay serious money for those, anywhere from $400 to $2,000 depending on clarity. In top-grade red mint state, the same variety can reach $12,000 or more. And then there's the king of them all, the 1947 double die obverse. It's rare, but when you find one, you'll know it. The words, "In God We Trust," "Liberty," or even the date itself will appear slightly doubled, almost as if stamped twice. One of these double die varieties, found in near-perfect condition, sold for over $155,000 at auction. And even in circulated condition, it could still bring $5,000 to $10,000, proving that condition doesn't always kill value if rarity is on your side. But what's truly captivating about this 1947 penny isn't just its potential value, it's its history. This was a coin that circulated during the booming years right after World War II, when the nation was rebuilding, industries were thriving, and pocket change had real power. You could buy a newspaper for 3 cents, a loaf of bread for 10, and fill your gas tank for a couple of dollars. This coin might have passed through the hands of soldiers returning home, through local diners, through kids buying candy, with war bonds cashed in by their parents. Even its worn, dirty look tells a story. That brown patina, the greenish oxidation, the faint discoloration, it's all part of copper's aging process, the metal slowly reacting to air and moisture over nearly 8 decades. To a collector, that's not damage, that's character, that's the proof of life. A sign that this coin survived when countless others were melted, lost, or forgotten. And here's a little-known fact. In rare cases, 1947 wheat pennies have been discovered house. Struck on leftover steel planches from 1943, when wartime shortages forced the mint to use zinc-coated steel instead of copper. Those silver-gray errors are nearly priceless. Only a handful are confirmed to exist, but each has sold for upwards of $200,000. Imagine holding something like that, a tiny, ordinary penny hiding a small fortune. Even without those major errors, the right eye for detail can turn this coin into treasure. Maybe the rim has a clipped edge. Maybe there's a die crack stretching through 1 cent on the back. Maybe it's slightly misaligned or struck through grease, all of which are sought-after features. And that's what makes these old wheat pennies so magical. They remind us that hidden value doesn't always sparkle. Sometimes it looks like this, dull, dusty, and forgotten, waiting for someone curious enough to look closer. So before you write off that old jar of pennies sitting on your shelf, take another look, because this 1947 coin, like the others we've seen tonight, proves that the next small fortune might be sitting right in your palm. And that wraps up our countdown of 5 dirty, worn-out Lincoln Wheat Pennies that could secretly be worth thousands. If you enjoyed this hunt through history and hidden value, make sure you're subscribed to Quarter Dollar, because next time we're uncovering a set of coins so rare, their stories might just rewrite what you thought you knew about pocket change. Thanks for watching, and remember, always check your change. The next treasure could be hiding in plain sight.